The Viking Age, the period of great Scandinavian expansion from the 8th to the late 11th century, is normally associated with violent raids and warfare. But in fact, Viking people were highly civilized and greatly valued the arts, especially storytelling about ancient myths, heroic legends, folk tales, and family and local histories. These stories circulated orally, often in the form of epic poems, usually passed on through successive generations, but many were written down in the 13th century, mainly by scholars in Iceland, which today form the basis of much of what we know about the ancient Norse myths and legends, sagas, which were supposedly based on true stories of real Viking Age people. I thought I'd share a list of 5 of the most memorable Viking tales, in no particular order. Number 1. Odin wins the runes. During the pagan era, Odin was respected as the mysterious and omniscient god of war, wisdom, death, and fate. Sacrifices were often made to him, particularly in times of conflict. It was said that he sometimes traveled through the human world in disguise, meddling in people's affairs, or changing the course of battles. Mystical stories link Odin to the Vikings' only form of writing during the pagan era, by carving rune letters into wood, stone, metal, or bone. The myth appears in 25 cryptic verses of a poem called Havamal, meaning the sayings of the High One, possibly dating back to the 9th century. It's often claimed to be in Odin's own words, and describes him sacrificing himself to himself by hanging upside down on a lonely tree for 9 nights. Finally, he has a vision of the runes, alongside the secrets of many esoteric spells. I plan on a future video on this, with an in-depth interpretation and explanation of its occult significance. Number 2. The Norse discovery of America. I've already covered this topic in a video about Erik the Red, featuring data from medieval manuscript Erik's Saga, which claims that in early 11th century, 500 years before Columbus, Viking men and women reached North America and established settlements there, as well as in Greenland. They describe how an unknown country was initially sighted by a ship blown off course in bad weather, and shortly afterwards by a series of expeditions that set out from the Viking colony in Greenland in order to explore it. They came to a rich and fertile land full of game and timber. They also found wild grapes growing in profusion, so they called it Vinland, which means wine land. One group attempted to settle there, including a woman who gave birth to the first European child born on American soil since the Solutrean times, but they made a hasty retreat after an altercation with some of the local Native American people. For many centuries, these accounts were regarded with great skepticism until 8 11th century Viking-style houses, a forge, and 4 workshops were excavated in Newfoundland, Canada, providing conclusive proof that the sagas were true. Number 3. Ragnarok. Like other world religions, Viking paganism included an apocalyptic vision predicting that the existing world will be destroyed by cosmic forces and characters, and will then be reborn into a new, more perfect age. This scenario is most vividly brought to life in the 10th or 11th century poem called Völuspá, which is the prophecy of the seeress, possibly developed from a series of dreams experienced by a real-life wise woman, or what some today may refer to as a witch. As horror overwhelms the world, causing it to freeze and wither, gods, monsters, and giants engage in cosmic battle until even Odin and the sun itself is vanquished. However, the poem ends with the optimistic promise of a new world rising from the ruins of the old. After the cataclysmic events, the world will resurface anew and fertile, the surviving and returning gods will meet, and the world will be repopulated by 2 human survivors. A powerful and haunting tale which probably deserves its own video as well. Number 4. VOLUND and Smith. This heroic legend, illustrated on Viking Age carvings from England and Sweden, is part fairy tale, part horror story. VOLUND is a princely goldsmith who fashions exquisite rings. In the romantic opening, he falls in love with a spirited Valkyrie, who comes to him in the form of a swan maiden. However, after a brief marriage, she abandons him and returns to work on the battlefields, gathering up slain warriors to be honored by Odin. As he grieves over his loss, VOLUND is abducted by an enemy king who imprisons him on an island for refusing to marry his daughter. The hero's revenge is to murder the girl's brothers and fashion their body parts into grisly jewelry, which he presents to his unwitting captors. In a final twist, he forges himself some gold wings and flies away to resume his search for his lost wife. The popularity of this tale clearly extended even beyond the Viking world, for VOLUND is also mentioned in Anglo-Saxon poems, including Beowulf, which was featured in a recent video I made. I'll place a link to it in the description in case you missed it. And number 5, the theft of Thor's hammer. Viking pagan mythology is dominated by eternal conflict between the gods and their arch-enemies, the giants. Among the gods, the role of chief giant basher belonged to the mighty Thor. As defender of both the divine and human realms, he had a penchant for smashing in the skulls of giants with his magic hammer. And in this tale, it is stolen by one of the giants, who refuses to return it unless the beautiful goddess Freya agrees to marry him. Thor gallantly disguises himself as the requested bride, a truly courageous act in a society where cross-dressing was considered an outrage against virility. He travels to Giant Land and pretends to take part in the wedding. As soon as the hammer is delivered, in accordance with the bargain, Thor seizes it and destroys the giant in a single blow. Thor's popularity in Viking times is demonstrated by the many pagan temples that were dedicated to him and the large number of miniature hammer pendants excavated. Those were 5 of my favorite Viking stories. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an anthropologist. You can find my published books on Amazon. They make a great gift. Thank you so much to those who support me on Patreon. There should be a link below in the description section for those that are interested. Please share this video if you found it informative. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you click on the notification bell for updates. I very much look forward to reading your thoughts in the comment section. Please have a wonderful weekend and I hope to see you again soon.